In a packed courtroom in Los Angeles, a 43-year-old woman named Patricia Hendricks stands before America's toughest judge, Judge Judy Sheindlin. But what happens in the next 60 seconds will shock millions and become one of the most viral courtroom moments in television history. Patricia, red-faced and trembling with rage, points her finger directly at Judge Judy and screams the words that will destroy her life. "I want an apology from you.
Right now,
or I'm walking out of here." The courtroom freezes, jaws drop. Even Bailiff Byrd, who has seen everything in his decades beside Judge Judy, takes a step back in disbelief. Because what Patricia doesn't know yet, what she's about to learn in the most humiliating way possible, is that Judge Judy has evidence, devastating, career-ending, life-destroying evidence that will expose Patricia, not just as a liar, but as a cruel, calculated bully who tortured her elderly neighbor for 3 years. And when Judge Judy reveals what she knows, Patricia's entire world will collapse on live television in front of millions. This is the story of how one entitled woman demanded respect from the wrong judge, on the wrong day, and paid a price so severe that her own children disowned her. What you're about to see is real. The judgment is real. The destruction is real. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why Judge Judy is called the most feared judge in America. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. It was supposed to be just another Tuesday morning in Judge Judy's courtroom. Cases were lined up back to back. The usual small claims disputes that millions of Americans tune in to watch every single day. Patricia Hendricks had driven down from her gated community in Orange County, confident, even smiling as she walked through the studio doors. She wore an expensive blazer, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, and carried herself like someone who had never lost an argument in her entire life. Her case seemed simple enough on paper. She was being sued by her next-door neighbor, a 67-year-old widow named Elena Rodriguez, over a fence dispute. Patricia had installed a beautiful white picket fence along what she claimed was her property line. Elena insisted the fence was 4 feet onto her land and wanted it moved. To Patricia, this was ridiculous. She had lived in that house for 8 years. She knew where her property ended. And more importantly, she wasn't about to let some old woman tell her what to do. So when the summons came, Patricia didn't hire a lawyer. She didn't need one. She would walk into that courtroom, explain the situation to Judge Judy like she was talking to a customer service manager, and walk out victorious. That was the plan anyway. But from the moment Patricia sat down in the defendant's chair, something felt wrong. Judge Judy wasn't looking at her case file. She was looking directly at Patricia with those sharp, calculating eyes that have made guilty people confess for over 25 years. Judge Judy began with a simple question. "Ms. Hendricks, when did you install this fence?" Patricia leaned forward, already irritated by the tone. "2 years ago, Your Honor, and I don't appreciate—" Judge Judy's hand shot up. "I didn't ask what you appreciate. I asked when you installed the fence." Patricia's face flushed. She wasn't used to being cut off. She wasn't used to being spoken to like this. 2 years ago, she repeated, her voice tight. "And did you have the property surveyed before installation?" Judge Judy asked. Patricia hesitated. That hesitation told Judge Judy everything she needed to know, but she waited. "I didn't need a survey," Patricia said, crossing her arms. "I know where my property line is." Judge Judy tilted her head slightly. "You know? Or you guessed?" The audience stirred. Patricia's jaw clenched. "I know." Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, eyes never leaving Patricia's face. "Then why does the city surveyor's report ordered by you 3 years ago show that your fence is 4 feet onto Mrs. Rodriguez's property?" The courtroom erupted in whispers. Patricia's eyes went wide. She stammered, That's not, I never—" Judge Judy held up a document. "This is your signature, isn't it?" Patricia squinted at the paper from across the room, her confidence draining like water from a broken dam. I don't remember signing that," she said weakly. Judge Judy's expression didn't change. "You ordered a survey. The results came back showing you were wrong. And instead of accepting that, you never picked up the report and went ahead and built the fence anyway. Is that correct?" Patricia's face turned from red to purple. This wasn't going the way she planned. Not at all. She could feel the cameras on her, the audience staring, judging, and in that moment, instead of apologizing, instead of admitting she made a mistake, Patricia Hendricks made the biggest error of her entire life. She stood up from her chair, pointed her finger directly at Judge Judy, and said the words that would haunt her forever. "Your tone is disrespectful. I'm a grown woman, a taxpayer, and a good person, and I will not be spoken to like this. I want an apology, Judge Judy, or I am walking out of here." The silence that followed was deafening. You could hear people in the gallery holding their breath. Bailiff Byrd's eyes went wide. Even the camera operators stopped moving. Because in the history of Judge Judy's courtroom, in over 25 years and thousands of cases, no one had ever demanded an apology from her. Not once. Judge Judy slowly removed her glasses. She placed them gently on the bench in front of her, and when she looked back up at Patricia, her expression was so cold, so controlled, so utterly calm that it was more terrifying than if she had yelled. "Sit down," Judge Judy said quietly. Patricia didn't move. "I said sit down, Ms. Hendricks." Patricia remained standing, chin up, defiant. She thought she was making a power move. She thought she was taking control. What she didn't realize was that Judge Judy was giving her one last chance to save herself. And Patricia just threw it away. Before we show you what Judge Judy did next, if you love seeing entitled people get exactly what they deserve, you need to hit that like button right now. Seriously, smash it. Because what's about to happen is the most satisfying courtroom destruction you will ever see. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment like this, and drop a comment telling us, have you ever had to deal with a Karen in real life? What happened? We want to hear your stories. Now let's get back to the courtroom, where Patricia Hendricks just made a mistake so big, so catastrophic, that her entire life is about to implode in front of millions of people. Judge Judy has had enough. The gloves are off, and what she's about to reveal will leave you speechless. Here's what happened next, and trust me, you're not ready for this. Judge Judy stood up from her chair. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The entire courtroom leaned forward because everyone knew something massive was about to happen. "Ms. Hendricks," Judge Judy began, her voice like ice. "You want an apology from me? Let me tell you what I have here." She lifted a thick manila folder from her desk. Patricia's eyes darted to the folder, then back to Judge Judy's face. A flicker of fear crossed her expression. "This folder contains 3 years of documentation about you," Judge Judy continued. "Complaints from 9 different neighbors, police reports, HOA violations, harassment claims, threatening emails, and a restraining order request from Mrs. Rodriguez that she was too afraid to file because you told her you'd make her life a living hell." The courtroom gasped. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. That's lies. All lies," she sputtered. Judge Judy wasn't finished. "You called the police on Mrs. Rodriguez 14 times in 2 years. 14 times. For completely fabricated violations. Walking her dog too early. Playing music too loud. Parking her car 6 inches over an imaginary line you drew in chalk on the street." Patricia tried to interrupt. I'm talking. Judge Judy's voice finally rose, sharp and commanding. The room went dead silent. Judge Judy opened the folder and pulled out a photograph. She held it up. "This is Mrs. Rodriguez's garden. Do you recognize it?" Patricia squinted, confused. What does that have to do with, do you recognize it, yes or no?" Patricia hesitated. "Yes." Judge Judy pulled out another photo. "This is the same garden 1 week later. Completely destroyed. Every plant ripped out. Dirt everywhere. Mrs. Rodriguez's late husband planted that garden 20 years ago. It was all she had left of him." Patricia's face went pale. The audience gasped louder now, some people shaking their heads in disgust. "You did this," Judge Judy said, not as a question, but as a fact. "No, I didn't." "She can't prove—" Judge Judy held up a third photo. It showed Patricia clear as day in Mrs. Rodriguez's yard at night with a shovel. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m. "Your own security camera took this picture," Judge Judy said coldly. "You forgot you installed a camera that faces her yard, and it caught you destroying her garden out of spite." Patricia collapsed back into her chair, her face crumbling. She had nothing left. No defense. No excuses. Judge Judy leaned forward, her eyes locked on Patricia like a predator watching cornered prey. "So let me make something very clear to you, Ms. Hendricks. You don't get an apology from me. You don't get sympathy. You don't get respect. What you get is a judgment, and it's going to hurt." Judge Judy set down the photographs and turned her attention away from Patricia entirely, as if she was no longer worth acknowledging. Her expression softened as she looked toward the plaintiff's table where Elena Rodriguez sat quietly, tears streaming down her weathered face. The elderly widow clutched a tissue in one hand and a small picture frame in the other. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Judge Judy said gently, her voice completely transformed from the sharp tone she'd used with Patricia. "I want you to tell me in your own words what the last 3 years have been like for you." Elena looked up, her eyes red and swollen. She took a shaky breath and spoke in a quiet voice thick with emotion. "Your Honor, I'm sorry, I never thought I'd be here. I never thought I'd have to fight like this." Judge Judy nodded. "Take your time." Elena wiped her eyes and continued. "My husband Miguel and I bought that house in 1987. We raised our 3 children there. We were so happy. When Miguel passed away 5 years ago from cancer, that house became everything to me. It's where I feel close to him. That garden she destroyed? We planted every single flower together. He would spend hours out there talking to the plants, making sure everything was perfect. Her voice broke and she paused to compose herself. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Even the camera operators seemed to have stopped breathing. When Patricia moved in 8 years ago, I tried to be a good neighbor, Elena continued. I brought her cookies. I offered to help her get to know the neighborhood. But she barely spoke to me. She looked at my house like it was ruining her view. I heard her on the phone once calling it the Mexican lady's dump. Patricia shifted uncomfortably in her seat, looking down. Judge Judy's jaw tightened. Go on, she said. Elena's hands trembled as she spoke. About 3 years ago, I noticed she was planning to build a fence. I didn't mind. I thought it might actually be nice to have some privacy. But when the workers started digging, I realized they were on my side of the property line. I walked over and very politely asked her about it. She screamed at me, called me a liar, told me to go back inside and mind my own business. Elena's daughter, sitting in the gallery, let out a small sob. Elena glanced back at her and tried to smile before continuing. I didn't want trouble, Your Honor. I'm 67 years old. I live on Social Security and my husband's small pension. I can't afford lawyers. I can't afford to move. So I tried to let it go. But then the fence went up and I lost 4 feet of my property. 4 feet might not sound like much, but it's where Miguel's rose bushes were. It's where we used to sit and have coffee every morning. Judge Judy leaned forward, her eyes never leaving Elena. What happened after the fence was built? Elena took another shaky breath. That's when it got really bad. She started calling the police on me for everything. I'd be gardening at 10 in the morning and she'd call saying I was making too much noise. I'd have my grandchildren over and she'd call saying there was suspicious activity. The police were so nice they could see what was happening, but they had to respond to every call. I was so embarrassed. My neighbors started looking at me differently, wondering if maybe I was doing something wrong. She paused, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. I stopped having my grandchildren over. I was too afraid she'd call CPS and make up some lie about me being an unfit guardian. I stopped going outside as much. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. The home I spent 40 years building with my husband. The audience was in tears now. Several people dabbed at their eyes with tissues. Even Bailiff Byrd looked visibly moved. And the garden? Judge Judy asked softly. Elena's face crumpled completely. That was the worst day of my life since losing Miguel. I woke up one morning and looked out my window and everything was just gone, destroyed, ripped apart. The roses Miguel planted when our first daughter was born. The lavender we brought back from our trip to Spain. The little stone pathway our son made in Boy Scouts. All of it just torn up and thrown around like garbage. She couldn't continue. Her whole body shook with sobs. Her daughter rushed forward from the gallery and wrapped her arms around her mother. Judge Judy waited, letting Elena have her moment. When Elena finally looked up, Judge Judy spoke with a firmness that somehow felt protective. Mrs. Rodriguez, I want you to know something. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. You were kind when you should have been. You were patient when you didn't have to be. And you tried to avoid conflict even when you had every right to fight back. That speaks to your character. Elena nodded, wiping her eyes. I just wanted to be left alone, she whispered. I just wanted peace. Judge Judy turned her gaze back to Patricia, who sat slumped in her chair, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Ms. Hendricks, Judge Judy said, her voice hard again. You didn't just steal land. You stole this woman's peace. You stole her memories. You stole 3 years of her life that she will never get back. You terrorized a widow who never did anything to you except exist in a house you deemed beneath you. Patricia said nothing. There was nothing she could say. The evidence was overwhelming. The cruelty was undeniable, and now, the entire country was watching her be exposed for exactly who she was. Judge Judy straightened her papers. We're going to take a brief recess, and when we come back, I'm going to tell you exactly what you owe Mrs. Rodriguez, and I promise you, it's going to be a number you'll never forget. She slammed her gavel once. The sound echoed through the silent courtroom like a gunshot. The courtroom light seemed brighter when Judge Judy returned from the recess. Patricia sat rigid in her chair, her expensive blazer now wrinkled, her face blotchy from crying angry tears. Elena Rodriguez sat calm and dignified, her daughter's hand on her shoulder. Judge Judy settled into her seat, put on her reading glasses, and picked up her notes. Everyone in the courtroom knew what those glasses meant. The hammer was about to drop. All right, Judge Judy began, her voice measured and deliberate. I've reviewed all the evidence, all the testimonies, and all the documentation provided by both parties. Ms. Hendricks, I'm going to explain this very slowly so there's no confusion. Patricia looked up, her eyes desperate, still clinging to some impossible hope that this might end differently. First the fence, Judge Judy said. The city survey, which you ordered and paid for, clearly shows your fence is 4 feet onto Mrs. Rodriguez's property. That's not opinion. That's not a dispute. That's a fact documented by a licensed surveyor. You knew this 3 years ago and chose to ignore it. Patricia opened her mouth. Judge Judy held up one finger. I'm not finished. Second, the harassment. I have police reports, HOA complaints, and witness statements from 8 different neighbors confirming a pattern of aggressive, threatening behavior toward Mrs. Rodriguez over a sustained period. Third, and most egregious, the destruction of property. Your own security camera shows you, at 2:47 in the morning, destroying Mrs. Rodriguez's garden with a shovel. That's not just petty vandalism, Ms. Hendricks. That's malicious, calculated cruelty. The courtroom was dead silent. Judge Judy removed her glasses and looked directly at Patricia. Here's my judgment. You will pay Mrs. Rodriguez $5,000 for the property encroachment and fence removal. You will pay an additional $4,000 for the destruction of her garden, emotional distress and loss of use of her property for 3 years. That's $9,000 total. Patricia gasped, her face going white.
$9,000?
That's insane. I don't have... Judge Judy's voice cut through like a blade. You'll find it. Sell your designer handbag. Cancel your country club membership. I don't care. You owe this woman $9,000 and you'll pay every penny. But Judge Judy wasn't done. Furthermore, you will remove that fence within 30 days at your own expense. If you fail to do so, you'll be fined $500 per day until it's gone. You will also complete a court-mandated anger management program, 12 sessions minimum, and provide proof of completion to this court. Patricia shot to her feet. This is ridiculous. You can't make me... Sit down! Judge Judy's voice boomed through the courtroom. Bailiff Byrd took a step forward. Patricia sat shaking with rage and humiliation. And finally, Judge Judy continued, her tone icy, you will write a formal letter of apology to Mrs. Rodriguez and every neighbor who filed a complaint against you. Not an email. A handwritten letter, because I want you to feel every single word as you write it. Patricia's face twisted in anger. I won't do it. I won't apologize for... Judge Judy leaned forward, her eyes boring into Patricia. Then you'll be in contempt of court, and I'll make sure the penalties are far worse than $9,000. Your choice. The room held its breath. Patricia said nothing, tears of rage rolling down her face. Judge Judy picked up her gavel. Mrs. Rodriguez, I hope this brings you some measure of peace. You deserve so much better than what you've been through. Elena nodded, unable to speak, her hand over her heart. Judge Judy looked one last time at Patricia with something close to disgust. We're adjourned. The gavel came down with a thunderous crack that seemed to seal Patricia's fate forever. Can you even believe what just happened? $9,000. Anger management. Handwritten apologies. Judge Judy absolutely destroyed her. If you're loving this justice, hit that like button right now. But wait, we're not done yet. What happened after Patricia left that courtroom will blow your mind. She did something so unbelievable, so utterly Karen, that it made everything even worse. But first, are you subscribed? Click that subscribe button and ring the bell because we post videos like this all the time, and you don't want to miss a single moment of entitled people getting what they deserve. Drop a comment and tell us, what would you have said to Patricia if you were in that courtroom? We want to hear from you. All right, now let's see what Patricia did next. Trust me, you need to see this. The moment Patricia stepped out of the courtroom, the cameras were waiting. Her face was still red and blotchy, mascara smudged under her eyes, but instead of walking away quietly, she made her second catastrophic mistake of the day. She stopped, turned directly to the camera, and started screaming. This is rigged. The whole thing was rigged against me from the start. Judge Judy had it out for me because I'm successful and she can't stand it. A producer tried to calm her down. Ma'am, maybe you should... Don't ma'am me, Patricia shrieked. I know my rights. That judge is a bully and I'm going to sue her for defamation. Behind her, Elena Rodriguez quietly exited the courtroom with her daughter and a small group of supportive neighbors. Patricia saw them and something inside her snapped completely. She pointed at Elena and yelled across the hallway. This isn't over, old lady. You haven't won anything. Security immediately stepped between them. Ma'am, that's a direct threat. You need to leave now. Patricia's eyes went wild. It's not a threat. It's a promise. 2 security guards escorted her toward the exit as she continued screaming about injustice, corruption, and how everyone would see the truth someday. Within hours of the episode airing, Patricia's life began to unravel in ways she never imagined. The clip of her demanding an apology from Judge Judy went viral immediately, racking up 15 million views in the first 24 hours. Social media exploded with reactions. People couldn't believe the audacity, the entitlement, the sheer delusion of demanding respect while being exposed as a bully and a liar on national television. The comments were brutal and unforgiving, but the real consequences were just beginning. Patricia's employer, a luxury real estate firm where she worked as a sales agent, received hundreds of calls and emails from people who had seen the episode. Clients demanded to know if this was the kind of person representing their company. Former clients came forward with their own stories of Patricia's aggressive behavior and dishonest tactics. Within a week, Patricia was quietly asked to resign. She refused, claiming discrimination. So they fired her outright and released a public statement distancing themselves from her conduct. Her homeowners association held an emergency meeting. The video had embarrassed the entire community, and residents were furious that Patricia had been harassing neighbors for years, while the HOA did nothing. They voted unanimously to impose additional fines for her documented violations, and warned her that any further harassment would result in legal action. Patricia tried to fight back on social media, posting long rants about how she was the real victim, how Judge Judy was biased, how Elena had manipulated everyone. But every post was flooded with comments reminding her that her own security camera had caught her destroying an elderly widow's garden at 3 a.m. There was no spinning that, no explaining it away. The evidence was undeniable, and the court of public opinion had rendered its verdict. Patricia Hendricks was guilty, and America was watching her pay the price in real time. 6 months after the episode aired, Elena Rodriguez was finally living in peace. The fence had been removed exactly 29 days after the judgment, 1 day before the daily fines would have started. Patricia had paid the $9,000 in 3 bitter installments, each check arriving with no note, no apology letter despite the court order. Elena didn't care anymore. She had her property back. She had her dignity back, and most importantly, she had replanted her garden. Her children and grandchildren helped her choose new roses, new lavender, new flowers that bloomed in colors Miguel would have loved. It wasn't the same garden, but it was beautiful, and it was hers. Neighbors who had been too afraid to speak up during Patricia's reign of terror now stopped by regularly to check on Elena, to chat over the fence, to remind her that she was valued and loved in that community. She had become a quiet hero, the woman who stood up to the bully and won. Patricia, meanwhile, had moved to Arizona. She sold her Orange County house at a significant loss after it sat on the market for months. No one wanted to buy the home of the woman who became the most hated Karen on the internet. Her social media accounts were eventually deleted after the constant harassment became unbearable. Her own adult children stopped speaking to her, embarrassed by her behavior and tired of her refusal to take accountability. One of her daughters even posted publicly, "I love my mother, but I cannot defend what she did. Mrs. Rodriguez deserved so much better." Patricia tried to start fresh in her new state, but the internet never forgets. A simple Google search of her name brought up the Judge Judy video, the articles, the memes, everything. She was recognizable wherever she went, and people whispered. Some even confronted her in grocery stores and restaurants. Patricia Hendricks had become a living cautionary tale about what happens when entitlement meets accountability. This story isn't just about a courtroom judgment. It's about something much bigger. It's about the importance of truth in a world where people increasingly believe they can lie their way through life. It's about standing up to bullies even when you're scared, even when you're alone, even when it feels impossible. Elena Rodriguez could have given up. She could have let Patricia steal her land and her peace, but she didn't. She stood up, she fought back, and she won. And Judge Judy, the legend herself, made sure justice wasn't just served. It was delivered with the force of truth that Patricia will never forget. Because in the end, respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned. And Patricia learned that lesson the hardest way possible, in front of millions of people who will never let her forget it. If this story satisfied something deep in your soul, if you loved watching Karen get destroyed by reality, then do us a favor. Hit that like button one more time. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we find stories like this and bring them to you every single week. Comment below and tell us, do you think Patricia actually learned anything, or is she still blaming everyone but herself? What's the most entitled behavior you've ever witnessed in person? We love reading your stories and we reply to as many as we can. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that karma is real and justice still exists, because the greatest stories aren't just the ones that entertain us. They're the ones that restore our faith that good people can win, that bullies can lose, and that the truth always finds a way. Thanks for watching, and remember, treat people with kindness or Judge Judy might be waiting for you. See you in the next one.